Resident Evil Requiem just got some huge details from director Koshi Nakanishi. So in recent interviews with various outlets, he pulled back the curtain on some exciting news about the game's direction. The big one being that he revealed how this installment is set to be the most extreme Resident Evil title yet, with the goal of creating a new kind of quote-unquote roller coaster of tension and release. Nakanishi also addressed the highly debated Big Mama Stalker, commenting on the theories but completely dodged the question of whether or not she is Lisa Trevor, a rumor fueled by the fact that Lisa's voice was used as a temporary placeholder. Additionally, the developers hinted at the game exploring areas beyond Raccoon City, and one big omission from these interviews was Leon was not mentioned at all. So jumping straight into the first interview, this is from IGN, where they spoke to both Koshi Nakanishi, the game director, and the producer Masato Kumuzawa. So IGN started off the interview asking about the monster. They said, "Do you have a name for her yet?" To which Koshi Nakanishi said, "She's scarier if we don't tell you her name. Feel free to give her a nickname. Big Mama is one of the ones we've heard so far, but we're taking all kinds of suggestions." To which IGN followed up and said, "These enemy characters are often becoming emblematic of the games they're in, such as Mr. X and Lady D. How do you begin designing these characters that become such a literally big part of your game?" To which Nakanishi responded, "Yeah, there's been quite a few types of these so-called stalker enemies in Resident Evil games over the years, and I think it's become a bit of a legacy of the series to have these pursuers. That made it difficult for us in terms of how to design a new one that would stand out amongst the crowd of iconic characters that you mentioned. Actually, in this case, the character was originally smaller, but I figured let's scale her up, and I think that was the right answer because of her incredible size suddenly becomes overwhelming, and she literally stands out from the pack of stalker enemies. The base concept was an enemy that you would know in an instant, and you would glance, like, that's not right, I don't want any part of this is bad." IGN then asked, "There's a clear visual cue when Big Mama steps into the light that suggests she can't follow you into the lit rooms. And was that a reaction to past safe zones and bright rooms where enemies aren't able to pursue you, but without an in-universe reason why?" To which Nakanishi responded, "Yeah, that's part of it. I wanted to bring a slightly new twist on the idea of exploring these so-called mansion-type environments that are typical to Resident Evil games, and rather than having a specific location that's safe or unsafe, you'll have noticed that a lot of these rooms have light switches or lamps and things in them. So I think it's more to let you have the chance to create your own room that in a given situation that particular creature is afraid of the light and won't come in." IGN then said, "One of my favorite moments from the demo was the light that went out in the room, and I thought I was safe. Are there still rooms which are definitively safe, maybe with a typewriter in it? Or is that in this game there's no room that's completely safe?" To which Koshi Nakanishi said, "I'm glad that worked on you because that was my exact intention. I think with horror you need to establish rules and then you need to break them to add even more fear and anxiety." IGN followed up and said, "So are there rooms in this game that are definitively safe?" To which Nakanishi said, "Even I don't know if I can commit to 100% safe." They then said, "Obviously Big Mama is the focus of this demo, but going back to the horror rules, you also presumably need sequences where the player feels more safe. How much of the game has the pursuer element in it?" Nakanishi responded, "The demo takes place pretty early in the game, and the situation Grace finds herself in is the most terrifying of her life. She's fairly inexperienced, she's never been in this kind of biohazard situation before, so that's pretty much like the maximum level of fear for her. There will of course be growth that she experiences, and she'll go through this and come out hopefully feeling less scared, and you'll have moments where you'll be able to take a break from that extreme horror and do some exploration, backtracking, and puzzle solving, and then gun combat as well. She will get weapons in her hands, she won't be defenseless throughout the entire game, and I think that it's a satisfying growth journey that you go on with her, and she's not going to be terrified right through the end of the game." IGN then said, "So Grace herself will be able to fire guns later in this game?" To which Masato said, "Yes, as you mentioned, the series is known for this kind of tension and release catharsis curve. We can't sustain maximum anxiety throughout or it's tiring, but we also want to keep you on your toes so you have this like roller coaster dynamic tension throughout. And we're going for that again, but we want to make sure that the wavelength of that curve is the biggest it's ever been, where you're going to have huge tension spikes and then give you a great release of tension as well." Now this is where things get interesting. So IGN then asked the question, "There have been some interesting theories about the monster online. I've seen discussion about Big Mama being Alyssa, literally Grace's mother, turned into a monster. There's also chatter that the monster's screams sound the same as Lisa Trevor. Are you aware of some of these fan theories, and is there anything you would like to point players towards?" To which Nakanishi said, "We're very much aware of the discussion and speculation about this kind of thing. And as a player, whenever I'm playing a game, I love to get involved in that stuff, but I don't think it's fair for me to weigh in on those debates as a developer." Masato then followed up and said, "I don't want to burst this bubble before the game comes out, but expanding discussion and speculation is a part of the fun of waiting for a game to release, and then you'll get the answer when you play the game. So hopefully you can just wait a little bit longer." And one comment I will say that you mentioned about the scream part being a part of the speculation, the sound in the demo is not final. It's actually temporary audio, so I wouldn't focus too much on that, what you can hear in the demo right now. When the final game comes out, it'll become clearer. So yeah, it almost seems like they deliberately put this temporary audio to kind of almost hide the identity of this stalker. Like, that tells me that if they put temporary audio of Lisa Trevor, then I think they're going to switch that out last minute for whenever the game launches, and it'll become clearer that it's actually Alyssa as the monster rather than it being Lisa Trevor or anyone else. IGN said, "A lot of people who played the demo here at Gamescom have said it would be great to release it publicly before the game comes out. And in the past, the Resident Evil series has done things like that. Is that something you are considering?" To which Nakanishi said, "Nothing is confirmed or set in stone at the moment, but we are also monitoring the feedback and people who are playing the game at events, and we're going to take that into consideration when we decide our next steps." The conversation then shifted to Alyssa, and they said, "Why was her character picked to return and become such a big part of Requiem's story?" To which Nakanishi said, "We knew we wanted to return to Raccoon City for this game. It's been a long time since Raccoon City's incident, and for the past few titles, we've been exploring slightly more unknown corners of the Resident Evil universe, so coming back to the Umbrella Corporation and the series' main central mysteries and themes was the goal of this project." With that in mind, actually Alyssa was the perfect character to be the key of all of this, because she, as fans will know, is a survivor of the Raccoon City incident, who then became a journalist and wanted to uncover the truth behind the Umbrella Corporation's involvement. IGN then asked, "Why did you make the decision with such a focus on the older games and older mysteries to introduce a new protagonist?" To which Masato responded, "Although there are a lot of connections in this game to the lore and mysteries of the series, past titles, and overall storyline, I don't want to give the impression that you have to be an expert in all of this lore to really get into this game." And she's also someone who didn't experience all of these things, but has heard of them and heard of Umbrella Corporation and Raccoon City, but it's actually all fresh and new and terrifying. And by having a new character, I think we can bring you on a journey with her that shows her growth from being fairly terrified and inexperienced at the start of the game, so you can grow with her and become more comfortable. This brings us to one of the biggest questions in my opinion. IGN asked, "There's so many fan favorites from the Resident Evil series past that players want to see come back. Do you feel the need to include elements of the past, especially in this game that looks back at the series origin?" To which Koshi Nakanishi responded, "Yeah, it's tough to answer without getting into too much we're not ready to talk about yet, but we know that the people expect to be surprised or pleasantly surprised whenever they, like you say, they get the connections or happy to see this, or that they're familiar with coming back. But I'm sure that people will be happy when they see how we've managed to blend a fresh approach and a fresh character with also things that fans will recognize." And the last thing IGN said was, "Finally, without asking any particular character being in the game, I'll simply inquire, are you enjoying the current amount of speculation online about Resident Evil Requiem?" To which Kumazawa said, "Yeah, we love checking out the conversations that are happening, but this isn't a game which is entirely focused on looking back, and we're back in Raccoon City, but that's not the only location in this game. It's coming out in the 30th anniversary, but it wasn't planned that way. It just ended up with the development was finished and the game is ready to release in 2026, which is the 30th anniversary. It wasn't built to be an anniversary title that is only backward facing, so there's a lot to this game than just the series' legacy. We didn't call it Resident Evil 9 after all. There's a clue in the logo type, but ultimately the name is Resident Evil Requiem. That's what we want you to take from the name of this game. That said, the feeling that we need to live up to fans' expectations is in a good sense of kind of pressure because it motivates us, so we love to see it." So next up, Game Informer actually asked a bunch of questions. They said, "How would you describe the horror theme of Requiem?" To which the director said, "We've been emphasizing in marketing materials return to Raccoon City, and that we are returning to the main storyline of the series and looking to push it forward with horror. And you'll see it if you played the demo using characters like Grace and the creature you saw. We introduced this storyline and theme, and they're quite unique as an approach for Resident Evil." Masato followed up and said, "One of the elements you can expect to return is zombies. They are back. We are focusing more on the monsters, a variety of different enemies, from the creature you saw in the demo to the next level, the next version of our zombies. Game Informer then asked, you trip as Grace in third person, but not in first person. Why is that? Nakanishi responded, we originally planned to just switch the camera HUD, but then we realized that if you take the camera out of the first person to third, because of the way Grace is animated as a first person model, it looks like she is just walking around straight with no reaction. It was unnatural. First person is already more immersive, but that immersion has to be represented in other ways in third person, which is why we have extra reactions like tripping. If we added tripping to first person, moving the camera like that would make you motion sick. In third person, it's about seeing her fear and reaction to the scenario, and going through the rest of the game, we start building in more reactions. There's no point in adding these in first person because you wouldn't see them. Game Informer followed up with the question, with tripping and other animations that theoretically slow down gameplay, is it fair to say the third person is harder? To which Nakanishi said, we don't want to be unfair, so we'll give you a little peek behind the curtain. When you trip, you can't see it, but the creature doesn't move. Third person never feels like an unfair advantage. And the last thing that they covered that the other interview didn't cover was what's it like within the team finally returning to Raccoon City in a new way after all these years. To which Nakanishi said, there are a lot of Resident Evil fans on the team, so naturally, we find it very exciting, and it's fun to finally tackle the idea of what's happening inside the city. The fans, though, they can go to next level with even more speculation and questions. We do have a lot of expectations to live up to, but we're confident you'll love it. So yeah, from what it sounds like, they're really trying to build a fresh type of horror experience with this game. One thing that I am stuck on is the idea of exploring new territories beyond Raccoon City. What does that mean? Like, I can't wait to learn more. And I also thought it was pretty interesting that they didn't really mention Leon or any of the past characters at all. Like, they kind of like commented on it, but they essentially dodged the question entirely. But they did say that they want to surprise fans, and that is like really critical. And it also motivates them to make the best game possible, which is really exciting. I can't wait to see more about this game. I'd like to see some other gameplay aspects. The demo was cool, but I want to see more of the gunplay. So hopefully we get that soon. But that's going to wrap it up with this video, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe with your noties on. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.